Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me to my class here tonight. We are going to talk about a subject that is of extreme importance because it simply is how to reprogram your mind after traumatic abuse. And that is a simple practice that is of critical importance as we are more and more aware today that many of us end up facing psychological, verbal, or emotional abuse through the course of our journey that is of insidious nature and profoundly damaging. So welcome to my class. Tonight we'll cover 4 very simple, easy, lasting ways that you can begin to reprogram your mind, avoid placing yourself in damaging situations, and resurface as rapidly as you possibly can before the damage is too deeply ingrained. So there are 4 simple steps. The first one is very simply to recognize it for what it is, and that is abuse. It is critical because unless you recognize it, you're not going to be able to take the appropriate step, and you will find yourself staying much too long in deeply insidious and damaging situations that will take possibly years after that to recover from. So number 1, recognizing abuse for what it is. It is not normal by any way, shape, or form to find yourself cornered by somebody and facing hours and hours and hours of psychological, mental, emotional attempts at breaking you down simply because you, let's say, attempted to communicate a boundary, to communicate some very basic human needs for your safety, well-being, for your ability to function in your life, at work, in your duties, for your ability to remain healthy and fit. And for you to be able to communicate basic human needs is an absolutely normal part of interacting with others. And that's when the madness will begin with abusers, because you are expressing a basic human need. You're expressing something that is important for you, your wellness and your functioning, that does not fit into their plan. Because you have to understand that to an abuser, you're not a being. You're not a person. You are a belonging. You're a possession. You're something they laid eyed upon and said, I want that. And if that happens to be you, then you become a possession. You become an objet de convoitise, as we would say in French, something that they will set their mind onto and engage in a relentless attempt to conquer and possess. And so that's not love. It never will be love. It never was, never will be. That is possession. That's the typical love comprehension of abusers. You are to them an object that needs to fit into their planned use of that object. Your needs do not matter to an abuser. So your number 2 step at that moment is to stop engaging. Immediately when you recognize the situation for what it is, do not attempt to defend or debate or defend your truth, basically. And that's what we're all guilty of doing once we start being attacked. All of us. We will begin to attempt defending our truth, making sense of what makes no sense. And when they provoke you and you react, all you do is lose your integrity. That's all you will accomplish, is lose your truth, lose your integrity, and enter the domain of madness. Because there's absolutely nothing you can do or say that will ever get through to them. You have to understand very key principles here. These people are incapable of being accountable for their actions, their behaviors, or the harm they impose on other people's lives. They have zero empathy, no matter the damage they create in you, your life, your heart, and your emotions. They cannot relate, they cannot comprehend, they do not understand emotional distress. It's completely foreign to them, and they have this incapacity to relate to the needs of others, which for us empath is so difficult to comprehend, because most of us who are targeted by abusive, manipulative individuals are very often empaths, and very often empaths are in the care professions, in healing arts, in healthcare, in caring of others, because we feel other people's emotions as if they were our own. and literally melt with them when we feel those emotions. So it would be impossible for us to inflict harm upon another and watching them suffer continue and continue and continue and continue and continue like a machine gun, literally shooting at you for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, no matter if you're folded in half, weeping, aching in the belly, they will not stop. It's the, those robotic killing machines, basically. No capacity for empathy. And they take zero responsibility for their actions, and everything is always your fault or someone else's fault. Nothing is ever their fault. So you have to understand that. Maya Angelou said some words that are very potent about that. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Believe them. They're showing you who they are. And you have to accept who they are exactly as they are and believe them. And so that's when you enter the land of madness, and you have to understand that territory. You cannot project yourself onto another planet and expect that everything is going to operate like it does on your own planet, because you will have a different terrain, different environment, different physical and chemical and different gravity, different laws of environment that will apply to that planet. And that's what happens when you enter the world, the land of madness. You enter a new territory, and you have to accept that territory exactly as it is. The blaming, the shaming, the condemning, all the psychological insidious abuse will slowly and progressively erode your sense of self, erode your self-esteem, erode your self-worth, and undermine first your mental health before it affects your physical health. It's very serious, and it needs to be taken into serious consideration. When you encounter this kind of environment, of situations, know that it will not change. All it will do is continually get worse. The statistics show that victims, targets of emotional, psychological, verbal abuse, and even physical abuse sometimes, go back to their abusers in average, or target of NPDs, narcissistic abuse as well. It doesn't always have to be narcissistic abuse, by the way. It can be antisocial behavior, antisocial personality disorders abuse. It can be emotionally disturbed individuals abuse that. So we have the cluster B symptomology there. Targets typically go back 9 times with their abuser. By the time you're that deep into destruction, it's very, very, very hard to repair. So know that the situations, once you encounter that, it's the way it's going to be. It's not going to change. It's only going to get worse. Every time you go back, it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. So that's not an option. That is not an option. What you have to see is recognize the territory and accept it for what it is, and remove yourself from that situation. So what is the step that immediately follows after you stop engaging? Well, you disengage. And you do this at once. Action pronto, action immediate, action as soon as possible. You are removing yourself from the abuse. And they can be right. They can be right about everything. They can be right about you being the most awful person they ever ran into their lives. They can be right about you being faulty and broken and inoperable and, I don't know, fill in the blanks. There will be hours of accusations bombarded into you like those bombarding planes in war zones, pounding you until you're flat out on the ground. You can't even breathe anymore. So congratulations. You turn towards them in your mind and in your heart, because don't go back to try to debate again. That's pointless. And say, hoorah, congratulations, like our friends in the Marines say, hoorah, you win. You're right about it all, and have a great life, and then you remove yourself, because we're not here to convince others of our worth. Are you kidding me? There is no time for that. Our time is valuable, and our time needs to be spent in constructive endeavors, like rebuilding ourselves. And that means not allowing abusers to blow us up into pieces after we've spent a lifetime restoring our strength, and so that we can be of service, right? So that's a no-go directly, and we don't need to engage on battles to defend who we are. Somebody doesn't like who we are, all the better. have a great life. We don't want to waste our time with people who can't appreciate the uniqueness of who we are, and others will. And so surrounding yourself with those who do appreciate you exactly as you are, who see your values, your uniqueness, your gifts, and encourage you to stay strong and shine, right? So let's be clear about something also, by the way. Protecting your boundary is not ever, by any way, shape, or form, pushing love away. I mean, that's a complete contradiction. Protecting your boundary is actually the exact opposite. Protecting your boundary is having learned to love yourself enough that you have the strength to stand in the face of abuse and say, no way, and walk away. And that's not pushing love away. That's celebrating the love that you have for yourself. That's celebrating the strength that you have rebuilt and the value that you know you can bring another. And that other cannot be somebody who is going to obliterate your strength, ever, ever. So also, let's not engage in those word soups that they are so clever. Abusers are so clever in collecting all of the information that they can collect about you, all of your teachings, all of your knowledge, all of your experience, all of your stories, all of your wounds and vulnerabilities and your fears, and then blending it all together in a gargantuan spaghetti ball of nonsense, a whole ball of n'importe quoi, and then throwing it in your face as if it was a concoction of their own making. These are word soups that a lot of times we see abusers using, trying to deflect and use your own words against you and your own wounds against you, and analytical, hour-long debates where you don't understand anything anymore. That's the very goal. Breaking your comprehension, confusing your mind, which actually is a very powerful hypnotic technique, by the way. Confusion, we do that in the show Hypnosis on Stage. Boom, shock and confuse, drop you. So, so you know, this is a technique. It's a manipulation technique that is used in that case in a malignant way to break you. So when there is abuse, there is not love, by the way. It has nothing to do with love. It's possession. It is control. It is manipulation, and complete disregard of the other person's wellness, their strength, their happiness, their needs, their basic human rights. It's an attempt at possessing you and breaking you to better control you. So here we are, and our action protocol always begins with these words that were drilled into my mind by this former lieutenant in the Foreign Legion anti-terrorist unit who I trained in combat training for many years, who always told me in a combat situation, Genvièv, and then again, you know, this is a combat situation when somebody is attempting to destroy you from the inside out. So the words are, he always used to tell me in those situations, Genvièv, turn around, walk away, live another day. Turn around, walk away, live another day. That's your protocol. Remember these words. Turn around, walk away, live another day. And once you have, then we can begin the fun part of all of this, which is to reprogram your brain. So understand why the abuse is so insidious is because it's like the story of the Trojan horse. Remember that story of that magnificent gift that comes delivered to the gate of this well-preserved, well-protected sanctuary, the city and inside walls that was safe. And this magnificent gift comes in. And that's how the abusers come into our life, as a magnificent gift from above, presenting themselves as larger than life and kind and loving, the love bombing state. We all know about this, the gift giving and tenderness and attention and bending backwards to fit all of your greatest dreams and all of that. That's the Trojan horse presenting themselves at the gate to go in. And once they're inside, once they're in your protective sanctuary, once they're inside of your walls and you've opened your heart and you embrace them, and then you begin sharing your little secrets and your wounds and your deepest thoughts. And now that's very dangerous with a predator, because they will use, collect, catalog, classify, flag, organize all that in a very analytical mind, remembering everything to best use against you. And once you express a need that doesn't fit into their plan and they blow up into that rage, all of this will be hitting you like an atomic bomb from the inside out, from the inside of your heart. And now that's when you're stupefied in shock. It's like being hit by a semi in the face. You're blasted from the inside out. And that's why this is such an insidious and damaging threat to your physical, mental, and emotional wellness. It's attacking you from the inside out. It's being imploded literally from the inside out. And you have to run for safety at that moment. You have to understand you can't stay in your city anymore. You have to remove yourself and immediately counteract the abuse. So how are imprints implemented in your mind? Very simple principles. It takes heightened emotion, and that's why the abuse is so potent, damaging, because you're in a state of absolute shock and devastation and ultimate betrayal. To find your strongest ally turning against you is absolutely devastating, as all of you who have suffered and survived abuse know. It's the most devastating thing that can happen. It leaves you breathless. It's like you've been hit in the stomach and you can't catch your breath anymore. So heightened emotion is there, repetition, and an authority figure is a key to an imprint, but you can also become your own authority figure, or you can use your friends and your tribe and those you look up to and use their words to be those imprints. So those 3 steps, authority figure, heightened emotion, and repetition, will create an imprint in your mind. And the best imprints are made when the brain is in the brain wave cycle, that's called theta. So I'm going to give you very rapidly a few points here. When you're in day-to-day awareness, you're in beta. As you start relaxing at the end of the day, maybe watching a movie or meditating or doing a relaxing session, you go down into alpha. And then hypnosis is theta, highly reprogrammable state of mind. Theta is the mixture of imagination with reality. That's when we are our first 7 years of life. That's what we experience becomes so deeply imprinted in our psyche and psychological makeup. So we're in theta for 7 years of life, where imagination and reality are all mixed into one. We're theta in hypnosis. That's why this state is so potent in erasing and dissolving and releasing the wounds and reconstructing your wellness. Theta is also very deep relaxation. It's also once you're falling asleep at night, you enter that state. The dream state is also theta. And then the deepest sleep is delta. So when you're going to sleep at night, you're going to glide through alpha and theta before entering delta. And then through the night, as you know, your sleep cycles are as hypnosis cycles as well. As you inhale, you typically emerge a little bit. As you exhale, you typically go deeper. So that's our REM or so sleep states. They're fluctuating. As you fluctuate through the night, you'll go through theta as you enter your sleep, as you exit your sleep as well. These are highly reprogrammable states of brain wave cycles. So use those states. You're also there when you are, at least in alpha, when you're training and you're entering that zone. If you're doing something repetitive, maybe walking in the forest or running gently or on your elliptical. In my case, when I swim train, now I'm completely out of my body at that moment. Reality fades away. What happens outside of me feels almost like a dream state. I barely notice things around me. I'm no longer myself when I'm swim training. I dive into that state of consciousness of life so deep that I'm no longer human. I'm no longer male or female. I'm no longer my identity or my personality or my name or anything. I am just water at this point. It almost feels like I'm one with the element. And that's a very deep for me experience. I've been swim training and diving my entire life, so that's a long time conditioning. But when you're entering those states, that's when you can use your brain reprogramming. So find yourself some short and powerful mantras, some words that rebuild yourself from what the destruction that you've sustained. So what I like to use is I'm an athlete. That's a powerful term for me because I believe I train athletes of the mind. And to me, being an athlete means being strong, fit, healthy, resilient, and resistant, and a force, being a force of nature. So that's a term, if you relate to it, you can use I am strong, I am loved, I am love, I am life. Terms like this that are short and that are vibrant with positive energy. And then begin to repeat them. So it takes discipline, it takes repetition. You can use them in all brainwave cycles, but if you use them also in the highest reprogrammable states, that's where they're going to be at their most potent. And continue. So these are easy and fast and lasting steps that will change your feelings and emotions, and all they require is discipline, repetition, and understanding. And after all, this is what this channel is dedicated to, giving you tools to educate yourself and empower yourself. So as always, thank you for tuning in. It's always a pleasure interacting with all of you. Thank you to all of my new subscribers. You make my day. And big heartfelt thanks to my wonderful tribe, Chevalier Pierre Robert de la Tour, always surrounding me with his life force and energy, and my friend John, ambassador of the First Nation of British Columbia, the Mwechet and the Mushlet, always sending me this magnificent surrounding energy of life, wellness, and force. We are stronger together, we all know this, and see you in next videos. Thank you everyone, good evening.